The crystalline spires of the Galactic Concordat's central chamber pierced the eternal night of space like frozen lightning. Within its halls, representatives of 3,000 civilizations conducted the daily business of managing an empire that spanned half the Milky Way. Supreme Arbiter Nexus, a being of pure thought and energy housed in an ornate containment vessel, presided over what should have been a routine session discussing trade routes and minor border disputes. None of them expected their world to change forever that day. The first sign came when the quantum sensors screamed in protest. A massive vessel had appeared at the edge of the Concordat's defense perimeter, bypassing centuries-old detection systems as if they were primitive radio arrays. The ship was unlike anything in their vast databases, a behemoth of dark metal and pulsing energy conduits that stretched nearly 4 kilometers from bow to stern. Impossible, breathed first speaker Ixil, their crystalline form vibrating with tension. No unregistered civilization possesses such technology. The chamber erupted in chaos as the quantum displays showed the vessel's approach. Its design violated every principle of shipbuilding the Concordat held sacred. Where their ships were elegant curves and harmonious geometries, this intruder was all sharp angles and exposed weapon systems. Power readings from its core exceeded anything their sensors could properly measure. Origin? Nexus demanded, their energy form condensing with concern. Earth, replied Undersecretary Zorn, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. They were a quarantined pre-FTL species when last observed, barely capable of reaching their own moon. The chamber fell silent. Earth had been deemed too primitive for contact just 50 years ago, their civilization still burning fossil fuels and fighting among themselves. The ship's mere existence challenged everything they thought they knew about technological progression. Their broadcasting, announced Defense Coordinator Vrel, their photonic matrix flickering with uncertainty. A hologram materialized in the center of the chamber. The figure was unmistakably human, tall and commanding, wearing a midnight blue uniform adorned with unfamiliar insignia. His dark skin contrasted sharply with short silver hair, and cybernetic implants traced subtle patterns across his temples. "I am Admiral Marcus Zhang of the Earth Defense Force vessel Harbinger," the human announced, his voice carrying an authority that silenced the chamber. "We come with urgent information for the Galactic Concordat. The survival of every species in this galaxy depends on what I have to share." "You have violated dozens of Concordat laws," Ixil interjected, crystal fragments chiming in agitation. "Your very presence here is an offense that demands dash." "With respect, first speaker," Zhang interrupted, "we don't have time for bureaucratic procedures. We've been watching, learning, and preparing for 50 years. What's coming will make your laws irrelevant." Nexus's energy form swirled with conflicting impulses. Everything about this situation violated Concordat protocols, yet the humans' very presence proved they possessed technology far beyond what should be possible. Either they had help, which would implicate other Concordat members in violation of quarantine, or they had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. "You have 1 hour to explain yourselves," Nexus decided, ignoring the protests from various Concordat members. "But be warned, the Harbinger will remain under surveillance by our defense fleet." Zhang's hologram smiled slightly. "Your defense fleet is impressive, Supreme Arbiter. But if we meant you harm, we wouldn't be having this conversation. 1 hour is all we need." As the hologram faded, Nexus addressed the chamber. "Summon all available representatives. Whatever drove the humans to reveal themselves must be significant. And I suspect none of us are prepared for what they're about to share." The Harbinger hung in space like a dark promise, its mere presence challenging centuries of Concordat doctrine. In 1 hour, they would learn why humanity had hidden its advancement, and what threat could be grave enough to force their hand. Nexus's energy form pulsed with an emotion few in the chamber had ever seen from the usually stoic leader, fear. Not of the humans, but of what could frighten a species that had advanced so far, so fast, in absolute secrecy. As representatives from across the galaxy rushed to answer the emergency summons, the Harbinger's presence loomed over them all, a harbinger indeed, though of what, none yet knew. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity, it seemed, would be the catalyst. The hour of revelation approached, and with it, perhaps the greatest challenge the Concordat had ever faced. The humans had chosen to reveal themselves now, after 50 years of hidden preparation. The question that echoed through the crystalline halls was simple: what could be so terrible that it would drive a species to such extraordinary lengths? They were about to find out. The emergency session chamber of the Concordat was filled to capacity. Beings of every conceivable form, from crystalline entities to gas-state intelligences, gathered to hear humanity's explanation. Admiral Zhang stood at the center, accompanied by 2 other humans, Lieutenant Commander Ria Patel, whose augmented eyes glowed with a subtle blue light, and Dr. James Blackwood, whose weathered face bore the marks of decades of intense research. 50 years ago, Zhang began, his voice carrying through the translator fields, we detected something your sensors missed. Not through superior technology, we were far behind you then, but through desperation. We were looking in the spaces between spaces, searching for anything that might help us advance faster. The Admiral gestured, and holographic displays materialized around the chamber. They showed strange patterns of energy, flickering in frequencies that made several of the energy-based council members recoil in discomfort. What we found, Ria continued, her augmented eyes pulsing as she interfaced with the display system, was a signal. Not random background radiation, but a deliberate transmission. It originated from the dark space between galaxies, where none of your monitoring systems were watching. Impossible, declared Representative Morn, their gaseous form swirling in agitation. Our detection networks are the most sophisticated in known space. They're also predictable, Dr. Blackwood spoke up, his voice carrying the weight of decades of secret research. Your civilization's greatest strength, its stability, is also its weakness. You look where you've always looked, using methods that haven't changed in millennia. The displays shifted, showing massive structures drifting in the void between galaxies. They defied natural geometry, their surfaces covered in patterns that seemed to hurt the eye when viewed directly. We call them the Void-born, Zhang continued. Ancient machines left behind by a civilization so old their name has been lost to time. The signal we detected wasn't meant for us, it was meant for them. A wake-up call. The chamber erupted in murmurs and exclamations. Nexus's energy form pulsed with concern. If such beings existed, surely we would have detected them in our history. You weren't looking in the right places, Ria explained, bringing up new displays showing complex mathematical formulae. We had to develop entirely new branches of physics just to track them. The Void-born exist partially outside normal spacetime. They're awakening now, and they're hungry. Everything about our ship, Zhang continued, gesturing to a schematic of the Harbinger, every technological leap we've made, was developed with one purpose: fighting what's coming. We've spent 50 years preparing for a war that most of the galaxy doesn't even know is approaching. Dr. Blackwood stepped forward, his hands manipulating the holographic controls with practiced ease. We discovered the remains of their previous harvests in the spaces between galaxies. Entire civilizations reduced to raw materials, broken down to their constituent atoms to feed the Void-born's endless reproduction cycle. The displays showed scenes of devastation on an unimaginable scale, the remnants of galaxy-spanning civilizations reduced to clouds of elemental particles. Why reveal yourselves now? First speaker Ixil demanded, their crystalline form vibrating with tension. Because they're almost here, Zhang answered grimly. Our long-range sensors detected their scout ships at the edge of the galaxy 3 days ago. We estimate 2 months before their main force arrives. The Admiral's words hung in the air like a death sentence. Ria brought up tactical projections that made even the most hardened military minds in the chamber flinch. The scale of the approaching threat was beyond anything in their experience. "We're not asking for permission," Zhang stated firmly. "We're not here to debate or discuss. We're here because even with everything we've built, everything we've prepared, we need allies. The Voidborn can't be reasoned with or deterred. They can only be fought." Dr. Blackwood stepped forward again, his expression grave. "We're prepared to share everything, our advances in quantum mechanics, our breakthroughs in void space technology, our weapons research. But we need to act now. Every day we delay is a day less we have to prepare." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Supreme Arbiter Nexus spoke, their energy form pulsing with determination. "You violated our laws, hid your development, and now demand our cooperation." "Yes," Zhang agreed simply, "because the alternative is extinction." "Show us everything," Nexus commanded, their tone brooking no argument. "Every piece of evidence, every scrap of data. If what you say is true, the Concordat must understand the full scope of what we face." As the humans began their detailed presentation, the reality of their situation sank in. Humanity hadn't just advanced, they had been standing guard, preparing for a threat the Concordat had never imagined. The question now was whether the galaxy could unite in time to face what was coming. Above them, the Harbinger waited in space, its dark hull a testament to humanity's desperate race against time. The age of peaceful expansion was over. The time for war had come, whether the Concordat was ready or not. The massive strategic command center beneath the Concordat's main chamber hummed with frantic activity. Holographic displays showed the approaching Voidborn scout ships, 3 of them now, their impossible geometries casting shadows that seemed to bend reality itself. Admiral Zhang stood with Supreme Arbiter Nexus, watching as the Concordat's most advanced warships moved to intercept. "Your ships need to pull back," Rhea warned, her augmented eyes tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. "Conventional weapons won't work against them. You'll only lose good people." But pride and protocol won out. The Concordat's 7th Defense Fleet, pride of their military might, moved into attack formation. Their ships were beautiful things, all graceful curves and harmonious design, each one the product of millennia of technological refinement. The lead Voidborn scout ship didn't even slow down. The first salvos from the Concordat fleet, plasma torpedoes and quantum disruptors that could crack planets, simply vanished into the scout ship's hull. It was like watching water disappear into sand, leaving no trace of impact. The Voidborn vessel's response was devastating in its casualness. A beam of what looked like liquid darkness lashed out, and 3 Concordat battlecruisers simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, they were there one moment and gone the next, as if they'd never been. By the first light, breathed Defense Coordinator Vrel, their photonic matrix flickering in distress. "How can we fight something like that?" "Show them," Zhang commanded, nodding to Dr. Blackwood. The scientist activated a secure channel to the Harbinger. "Strike Team Alpha, you have authorization. Execute Operation Lightbringer." From its position near the Concordat station, the Harbinger's hull began to transform. Sections that appeared to be solid armor plating flowed like mercury, revealing massive weapon arrays unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Energy began to build, not in the familiar spectrum of normal space, but in the spaces between reality. "What you're about to see," Rhea explained, her voice tight with concentration as she linked with the Harbinger's systems, "is the product of 50 years of studying their technology. We learned that the Voidborn exist partially in null space, it's what makes them so hard to detect and damage. But it's also their weakness." The Harbinger fired. The beam that lanced out appeared black to normal vision, but the quantum sensors showed something else, a tear in reality itself, a weapon that didn't so much damage its target as remove its very possibility of existence. The Voidborn scout ship tried to evade, moving with impossible speed. But the beam followed, guided by Rhea's augmented consciousness working in concert with the Harbinger's AI. When it struck, the effect was immediate and terrifying. The scout ship began to unravel. Not explode, not break apart, but literally unravel like a sweater whose thread had been pulled. In moments, it was gone, its matter and energy scattered across dimensions. Silence fell across the command center. That, Zhang said quietly, was one scout ship. Our sensors show at least 300 larger vessels approaching in the main fleet. The implications hit like a physical blow. If it took a ship as powerful as the Harbinger to destroy one scout, how could they possibly face hundreds of full-sized void-borne vessels? Now you understand why we need to work together, Dr. Blackwood said, bringing up new displays. The Harbinger is powerful, but it's just one ship. We need to adapt this technology to your fleets, and quickly. How? First speaker Ixel demanded. You speak of physics we barely understand, weapons that violate the fundamental laws of reality as we know them. We don't have a choice, Zhang responded. Either we evolve beyond our current understanding, or we die. The Void-born don't negotiate, don't show mercy, and don't stop until they've consumed everything in their path. Nexus's energy form pulsed with decision. How long do we have? 2 months before the main fleet arrives, Ria answered, her augmented eyes dimming as she disengaged from the Harbinger's systems. Maybe less. We need to begin immediately. The Concordat has stood for 10,000 years, Nexus announced to the assembled leaders. In all that time, we have never faced a threat of this magnitude. Our laws, our procedures, our very way of life may need to change if we are to survive. The displays showed the approaching void-born fleet, a mass of geometric impossibilities that hurt the mind to look upon directly. But now, there was something else in the tactical display, hope, in the form of the Harbinger's successful attack. We'll need to establish joint training facilities immediately, Zhang said, pulling up detailed plans that showed humans had been preparing for this moment for decades. Your shipyards will need to be modified to produce the new weapon systems. Your crews will need to learn how to fight in ways they never imagined. As the command center erupted into focused activity, Nexus turned to Zhang. You knew this would happen. You prepared for this exact moment. We had to, Zhang replied simply. Humanity has a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We hoped we were wrong about the Void-born. We prepared in case we weren't. Above them, the Harbinger's weapon systems slowly powered down, its hull reforming into its default configuration. But now everyone who saw it understood, this wasn't just a ship, it was a prototype for humanity's vision of warfare against an impossible enemy. The race against time had begun. 2 months to prepare the galaxy for a war unlike any in history. 2 months to overcome millennia of tradition and bureaucracy. 2 months to either evolve or die. The Void-born were coming. And this was just the beginning.